Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. It's not working, they say. China has the upper hand, they said. China will never back down. They have all the leverage in the world, and Donald Trump is just confused and has no plan with these tariffs. This is what we've been hearing for basically a month at this point. Non-stop doubters and naysayers, MSNBC analysts lecturing us about economics, even though half these freaking idiots have journalism degrees or degrees in communications. This clip comes to mind.
And you've got congressmen, senators from every state saying to this White House, our small businesses are are dying here. I'm not saying Donald Trump has changed what he thinks in his heart, but he's backed into a corner and he needs to get off this crazy tariff train, and he knows it. That look at the cargo ships coming in to Seattle, the port of Los Angeles, pick the port. Those ships, we're getting fewer and fewer ships with less and less cargo. And unless he turns this around, 3 weeks from now, you walk into a store and we're going to have a COVID-like supply chain crisis.
Oh, and I can sense the fact check coming in. Well, Stephanie Rule is a senior business analyst. She has a degree in international business. Yeah, well, news check. International business is not really a degree. I know I've probably offended so many people by saying that, but I remember very vividly when I was going to school, the absolute dumbest person of my friend group who couldn't even pass basic physics. Yeah, he was the guy who was directed to doing an international business degree, and I remember following along with some of his classes. It's basically a social studies degree. So please spare me with the fact check as if Stephanie Rule is a highly qualified individual to be speaking on this stuff. She is not. Certainly not from an academic or experience standpoint. She is simply an ignorant, partisan talking head who's paid to tell people that everything Donald Trump's doing is horrible and wrong, bad for America, gonna backfire. It's just partisan anti-Trump slop being presented to us by these so-called intellectuals and experts. And time again, it backfires spectacularly, now doesn't it? Yeah, just the other day, tariffs are not working, Trump's getting no deals. China doesn't want to play ball, not even close. And then guess what just happened? The Trump administration, after engaging in talks with Chinese officials at a neutral location in Geneva, Switzerland, announces positive moves in the direction of a trade deal with supposedly most of the terms already locked in. These absolute leftist clowns once again are left with egg on their face. Let me show you guys exactly what's going on. We got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. All right, folks, so the White House just released this document right over here for immediate release on the 11th of May, 2025. The United States announces a China trade deal in Geneva. They then post statements from Secretary of the Treasury Scott Bessent and U.S. Trade Representative Ambassador Jamieson Greer. I'm not going to read these statements because they're actually transcribed. We'll just play the video so you could hear it from the source's mouth. Take a look.
And I think that led to a great deal of the productivity we've seen. We will be giving details tomorrow, but I can tell you that the talks were productive. We had the vice premier, 2 vice ministers who were integrally involved, Ambassador Jamieson and myself, and I spoke to President Trump, as did Ambassador Jamieson last night, and he is fully informed of what is going on. So there will be a complete briefing tomorrow morning.
And again, to the Chinese negotiators, Vice Premier Liu He, Vice Minister Li Qiangong, and Vice Minister Liao Min worked very diligently, and these are very tough negotiators. A couple of them I know from before and have had past interactions with them. And this was, as the Secretary pointed out, a very constructive 2 days. It's important to understand how quickly we were able to come to agreement, which reflects that perhaps the differences were not so large as maybe thought. That being said, there was a lot of groundwork that went into these 2 days. Just to remember why we're here in the first place is the United States has a massive $1.2 trillion trade deficit. So the president declared a national emergency and imposed tariffs, and we're confident that the deal we struck with our Chinese partners will help us to work toward resolving that national emergency.
Yeah, so it seems as though China is at the table, and the naysayers in the media look absolutely incredibly stupid. I mean, remember 2 weeks ago when the media was telling us that China had no intention of meeting? They weren't even returning calls from the White House. And when Donald Trump told the media that actually they had met with a Chinese team, they called him a liar. Xi Jinping's government responded, "Oh, that never actually happened." The media just bought that hook, line, and sinker, started telling the American people that Donald Trump was lying and that actually the Chinese had no interest in sitting down with the Trump administration. Then we pretty much confirmed they were lying after a Korean journalist snapped a photo of 2 Chinese diplomats entering the Treasury building. And of course, who runs the Treasury? None other than Scott Bessent, Secretary of the Treasury. Oh, and remember when the Chinese regime told us that they would never meet with Donald Trump unless he showed them respect and dropped the tariffs first? Well, instead, what happened? Literally the exact opposite. The timeline is so clear. Trump slaps these massive tariffs, these decimating tariffs on the Chinese economy, and clearly America's in a position of absolute leverage. China starts to panic like the paper tiger that they are, while suggesting that their resolve is infinite and they will never back down, and that if Donald Trump wanted to negotiate, he had to drop tariffs and show them respect. Slowly, behind the scenes, they started dropping their own reciprocal tariffs, one after another, which the media conveniently ignored. No, they were focused on fear-mongering about all the empty shipping containers coming over, as if that's going to be catastrophic for the American markets and not the Chinese. Chinese exports are down catastrophically. Oh, what are we ever going to do? I mean, just think about how idiotic that is. I mean, sure, there's the threat of having less Chinese crap on the shelves at Walmart for a couple months, but the idea that it was this cataclysmic event for the American economy clearly never made sense, and it was the Chinese who obviously stood much more to lose. And now after all of it, look where we are. And I'm seeing a lot of people all over social media claim that this is shocking, breaking, unexpected news. No, it's not. It's expected, if anything. Obviously, the Chinese government knows they have no other choice. They're facing economic devastation. They've got 2 things basically feeding their GDP: manufacturing and real estate. Well, we already know they're facing a real estate collapse. It's been ongoing for quite some time. And well, you really think the Chinese were prepared to layer on top of that a manufacturing crisis? Of course not. So clearly they had to come to the table, especially since Scott Bessent made it clear a couple weeks ago that he and Donald Trump were really just getting started. They had a whole lot of tools in the toolbox that they were ready to use to escalate pressure that they were applying on the Chinese market. And so clearly the Chinese took that very seriously, and most likely in a state of complete and utter panic, they showed up to make a deal. And this has been the obvious dynamic since day one. If you've been paying attention, if you've been actually looking at this stuff objectively, it's been quite clear that the Trump administration has been in control since day one. But for some reason, the media just never wanted to acknowledge that. It's absolutely crazy how willing they were to peddle Chinese disinformation and propaganda, how sowing doubt into the Trump administration's economic and trade practices was clearly a higher priority than reporting on the actual facts. And now, of course, it seems as though a trade deal is right on the horizon, although, of course, there has to be a little bit of skepticism. We're dealing with the Chinese government here. But hey, regardless of whether or not there's a finalized trade deal tomorrow, it seems like we're talking. It seems like the Chinese are finally coming to the table, which basically was the goal since day one. And so obviously this is a win. It's a massive win. And these media scoundrels look absolutely stupid once again. Anyways, that's pretty much what I got for you guys on this one. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to leave a like and possibly subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.